you said you've been blessed. You've had both these set of people there, and reporting into you, and somewhere you've been able to navigate, and you used a word, you've aced it.
The first few days was a little difficult because it was difficult for her to accept, that she's going to report to someone half her age, and she had children my age. She started not only she started respecting me, she started also, getting respect from others. The fact that and they started also viewing her as a senior authority in HR. And I was perfectly fine with it because the work was happening, and things were happening very smooth. And to the level that we started sharing a very comfortable, friendship. It moved from that of a colleague to a friend. We started going out. I started spending time at her with her family. An office friendship moves into, a personal friendship. Is when you know that you've actually gone and aced it, right? I broke, you can say, the ice ceiling in her mind, whatever she had created. And then after that, we both came on terms, and then we worked as a team. Overall, assess what is possible and what is not possible. Again, lower the expectations. It's when you set too high an expectation is when you start having you can say hiccups. For me, it's very, very important that the focus should be on the middle level. The strategy is passed down to the middle level. If your middle level managers do not share the same focus as you have at the top level, then it's difficult for them to percolate down to the team that will be actually working on the requirement.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode in the podcast series Aastha Unplugged. And like every time, we bring in leaders who are right there on the ground, experiencing all of it, and we hear it from the horse's mouth. So we, get into some real talk. And today, I have with me yet another powerful leader and a very dynamic one. And we are going to hear from her what has been her experience. And we're going to talk about something very, very interesting today, which is navigating the generational workforce gap. It's quite interesting when you have, people who are older than you, and then you are leading people who are way younger than you, and how do you balance? It's quite interesting. And I'm sure a lot of you would be going through that kind of a dynamics. So this is going to be really insightful. But before I introduce Annie to you, so we have Annie Mathen with us today. Welcome, Annie. Such a pleasure to have you with us today. And I'm going to introduce, I'm just saying a hi to you, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about you. So pleasure having you here, Annie.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So let me tell you, so Annie has almost 24 years of experience in the HR domain, diverse roles, and interestingly, across almost 18 years out of these 24 has been in the healthcare industry across different geographies. So she's been in Kolkata, in Navi Mumbai, in Gurgaon, in Pune, all of it. And then it's only, I think, last year that she switched finally after all these years and got into a different line altogether. So she's currently the Vice President HRBP at Randstad Sourceright. Yeah. And let me tell you from, just recently I had this interaction with Annie, and she is this vibrant, chirpy, full of life human being, I would say. And that is why it doesn't come across as wonder when I get to know that she has amazing interpersonal skills. She's great at understanding people. So she has a background in psychology, which makes it, I think easier for her to navigate the dynamics at workplaces. She connects with people, and which is why she's been able to navigate these, the generational gaps, which is what we're going to talk about today. And she loves to write. She writes poetry, blogs, loves to travel. So that's all about her. That kind of sums up the rich experience that she has and all that she brings to the table. And you're going to witness that in a while. So such a pleasure to have her here. And let's dive straight into the discussion. Yeah. How do we even navigate the generational gap leading across age groups? Yes. So Annie, I'm very, very excited from the discussion that we had, and there were different things that came up the other day. And I want to get started by, asking you what have been some of the challenges and opportunities. So you've been dealing with people, both the sides of the spectrum, so which is people who are older to you and you've been leading them, and younger to you. What does this diversity, this gap bring to the table in terms of challenges and opportunities?
Great. So before I start, Asa, thank you for the opportunity. I've been following you on LinkedIn, and I've always enjoyed your, and I love the name you've given it as Aastha Unplugged, it put across a very nice message. And when you reached out, I was really happy. So recently, Aastha, when you and I connected, it's when, we spoke of a lot of topics, right? And, I've actually heard about, all type of diversities, and be it, sexual orientation, be it gender, but generational diversity is the topic that came up in a conversation with a colleague, and he's practically half my age. So I thoroughly enjoy interacting with people who are, you can say younger to me, because I always get reverse mentored. I come to know so many topics and, subjects which I've never thought about. And so when he and I spoke, he brought up this topic, saying that, have you ever thought about generational diversity? And that's when I realized, oh, yes, so there's a name to this. And all these years, that whatever I've experienced, the real name is actually generational diversity.
Yeah.
It stuck to me. And after that, I always keep looking for this, and when people speak, I say, I think you're talking about generational diversity. So when you and I spoke, and we realized that this is such a hot topic, right? So coming back to the question that you asked me, I've been blessed because of having got an opportunity to work with, diverse set of people across different, you can say, states in the country. I got to work with definitely the culture was there, ethnicity was there, gender was there. And I also got a chance to work with, people of different generations. It brought forward a lot of challenges, because if you're working with someone who's practically 18 to 20 years elder to you, and the best part is, the cherry on the cake is the person is reporting it to you. Right? So you can understand how it must have been in the beginning. But I aced it, and I managed to have a beautiful relationship with my colleague. And similarly, when much later in my career, I started realizing that of late, I'm working with people who are practically half my age. And, it really surprised me, like, they're fresh out of college, and today you're working shoulder to shoulder with them. So there's, definitely a balance that has formed. And again, totally getting reversed mentored every day. Practically, it's a pleasure working with them. And the way they keep telling you, have you tried this, have you done this? And they're faster. Like, if I take, say, 10 minutes on a VLOOKUP, my colleague might just take, for me, 5 minutes on a VLOOKUP. So, I delegate all the work to him. In short, I mean, that's another advantage,
Yes.
since you asked me.
Sure. Wow. Interesting. Okay, so take me through. So I hear that there's you said you've been blessed. You've had both these set of people there, and reporting into you, and somewhere you've been able to navigate, and you used a word, you've aced it. So take me through the journey of you acing it, you evolving through it. How did it start? What were some of those moments, maybe some instances from your life where, you said it wasn't, was it this easy all the time, or you kind of evolved through it and you learned to navigate through this?
I definitely learned. It was a learning experience. So I'll give you an instance, and When I joined a particular hospital in Calcutta,
Yeah.
and I joined in the role of a manager.
Hmm.
And it's after I joined, I realized about, that, the team already had, a deputy manager who was basically running the show. And till then, I had no idea. And on the first day, I was introduced to her, and she walks in, and I look at her and I see this, I was barely maybe around 26, 27, and I see this 48, touching 50-year aged lady standing in front of me, and she's the deputy manager. And we introduced, and I realized, oh my god, like, how do I even manage her? So, the first few days was a little difficult because it was difficult for her to accept, that she's going to report to someone half her age, and she had children my age. And but within the next, so I initially the first 4 5 days I kept pretty quiet. I tried to understand what is the process and everything. And after that, I changed the way I worked. I started, sitting next to her, and started, reaching out to her and telling her that, can you help me to understand this? So what happened is, when she started realizing that she was getting due importance, and, by default, she used to call the shots also. So I used to tell her, like, and I very fondly call her Mrs. S. And she's Mrs. S on my phone also, even today, after all these years. So, I used to keep telling her, like, you tell me how to handle this. And she used to take fabulous decisions, being in the system for more than 12 years. She knew everything in and out. So she's been there and done that, right? So she used to just tell me, I know how to, I can already tell you what's going to happen, and I know how it is, but how to implement is what, I do not know. And that is where, you have to think. So the presentations, the excels and everything used to be from my end, but the idea I used to take from her, and we used to both sit and brainstorm and everything. So what happened in the processes, she started, not only she started respecting me, she started also getting respect from others, the fact that, and they started also viewing her as a senior authority in HR. And I was perfectly fine with it, because the work was happening, and things were happening very smooth. And to the level that we started sharing a very comfortable, friendship. It moved from that of a colleague to a friend. We started going out. I started spending time at her with her family, and we used to
Wow.
shop together with her daughters. So beautiful relationship, to the level that even after leaving, today also it continues in the same way. We visit each other. Whenever I visit Calcutta, I visit her, I stay over at her place. It's a beautiful relationship. It's actually when, you realize, when, an office friendship moves into, a personal friendship, is when you know that you've actually gone and aced it, right?
Yeah. Wow, love that. That's so beautiful. Amazing. So, what I hear is a very, a conscious, grounded, secure you to have created this, to have, given space for this relationship to, nourish and nurture. Because a lot of times, would you agree? And I'd want to hear from you on this, that what spoils the whole game is, I think what you did is beautiful and very profound, where you say that you spent time, you made that effort to understand her, to go, and being the boss, you still went and you sat with her, and you gave her the space to bring to the table what she had, what was her strength. Maybe you said she was great at the ideas, generating ideas, and she knew things, she was good at decision making, and you let her do that. So you gave her the space to fulfill her aspirations, to do what she wanted to, gain respect with you, gain respect with others. So somewhere, where do you see the gap happens, or what goes missing, which you brought in, and that kind of led to you coming closer?
Right. So if I sort of go into the details, I think it's probably the expectations. Like the fact for her, it was like someone younger coming and joining as a boss.
Yeah.
So she probably had certain expectations, and the person would boss her around, would take. She was sitting where she was sitting, and I never even moved her out of that table, and I took the table beside her, which was perfectly fine for me because that was not important for me. So then both the
Sure.
expectations were different. For me, it was important to learn from her. And I was pretty young, if you see. So I knew where it was for me, I grew in that role. So I spent most of the time networking, meeting with people, and when I used to come back, I used to come back with all that information, and we used to sit and work together. So it was probably what I understand is how we set expectations for each other. I broke, you can say, the ice ceiling in her mind,
Yeah.
whatever she had created, and then after that, we both came in on terms, and then we worked as a team. We had other than Mrs. S, we also had another 4 5 people in the team. And then it was like a small two of us then became a bigger team. And then and always the crux of all relationships in an organization is to have fun with the team. And when they realized that it was always about getting some work done and then celebrations, and every moment was celebrated. So we rolled out all the you can say all the increment letters, and then it was a party. So then the fun element was very important for the team. And I've always noticed across all organizations that I worked, it's always been the fun element that has always helped me achieve things. The team looks forward to that, the particular time, like there's an audit. So we, at 4 or 5 months of the audit is done, or say a budget exercise. Post that, the team looks forward that, we go for a lunch or we go for an evening. So that bonding that you create, and the small, small wins, that's what matters. So we started celebrating her birthday, her daughter's birthday, my colleague's anniversary. So it made all those things actually made. Then they realized that she's human, she's just like any one of us. And that also made a lot of difference. The fact that I didn't make them feel that I was a manager, I was just part of the team.
Sure. Sure. So, Annie, where did you, draw a line? Is there a line required, to kind of, okay, here we are together, enjoying, having fun, and that's my tool, that's what's helped me everywhere, you said. And versus when it comes to the systems, processes, us working to the highest levels of productivity, efficiency. So somewhere, do you think there was this crossing of boundaries that happened as a result of no barriers, really, no manager employee kind of a thing, or you thought that rather helped you in setting the systems right? How did you navigate that? Where did you draw that line?
Right. Actually, that's a very good question, because I've also questioned myself multiple times, about this very question, whether I should draw a line or not. But me being me, I could never draw one. So like after some time, probably when they start working, but yes, I'm extremely detailed oriented, and I'm target oriented. So I mean, I wouldn't call myself a taskmaster, but they would definitely. So work used to happen. So even if the fun and the friendship and everything was there, end of the day for me, the work mattered and timeline mattered. Sure. Like if a report has to go on 31st of the month, it will go on 31st of the month, whether they send it or I send it, but it goes on 31st. So those sort of, and those things help you to also build up a certain respect factor, not only with your team, and also with the people who are receiving that particular docket, that they know, okay, Annie or Annie's team will send this on this timeline. Sure. And accuracy was important. So those things were very clear. So then by default, you are creating a line, right?
Yeah. How was that clear? Did you sit down and set that kind of an expectation?
Okay. Yes. By default, there was always a checklist in place. Okay. So I always worked on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly and annual checklist. I have it across all organizations.
Sure.
And that also I used to work on the basis of where I used to have, like, say, if there are 5 people in the team, each one's responsibility was different. So I used to create a task, a task list on the basis of which, things used to happen as per the flow. So this task list used to be reviewed. So automatically things fell into place, and people then sort of go on an auto mode after that. Like everybody knows Monday these reports go. So what you do is you basically condition them. So by default, my psychology used to play out here also. I used to ensure that they're conditioned to get to send a certain report, and the team who's receiving it is conditioned to receive that report. So everything used to work in a clockwork.
Got it. Got it. Lovely. So do you, would you like to point out there some characteristics which are common to these two generations, which is people younger or people older, that there are these characteristics or these values that you would find, and this is how you navigate these? Is there anything of that sort?
Okay, so I need to give you this background of the younger generation, right? We only spoke about Mrs. S. So much later in my career, I took this interview of this, very serious looking girl, and I can name her. Her name is Trisha. So, I was in two minds because she was totally fresh. But I saw something about her, the serious look and everything. I thought she will be good at her work. So, task oriented, the way I thought. So then, we recruited her, and she turned out to be an amazing, asset to the team. And she was task oriented. So it was like, you want this data on this day, that this data used to reach you on this day. And this particular friendship evolves so beautifully that today I'm totally confused as to what I should call this friendship. She sends me Mother's Day cards. She sends me on Sister's Day. She, wishes me on, Friendship Day. She wishes me. And whatever said or done, she still calls me Annie ma'am. So, it flourished into a beautiful friendship. Now she was around 15 years younger to me, but again, when we used to party a lot. Yeah. So Gurgaon is the city of you can say pubs, right? Yes. So we used to party a lot, and it was always been a friendship where there was never a boundary. But next day morning, both of us were back to work, and from 8:30 to practically 6:30, it was all work. And then after that, it used to be she used to come and knock, "Chale, ma'am." And I'll be like, "Yeah, chalo." So that kind of a relationship. But again, there was an invisible boundary. Yeah. And things used to happen clockwork. So now, if you ask me what were the qualities between the two, the experienced person, of course, came with a lot of experience. Yeah. She had fabulous decision making skills. What she could not pick up was the change in technology. So anything related to software or an Excel. That's why then I pitched in, and then both of us formed a good bond. When it came to Trisha, it was like where anything you just want this, and it will be done that way, and you just tell once, and it used to happen. Like, you never had to put a reminder as such. Sure. And also people skills, like at her age, she used to get along with everybody. Be it with a younger crowd, or be it with senior people. She used to get along, and that used to work a lot in my favor. And always there was a scope of learning something new. So there were a lot of things that were, there were a lot of apps that were coming up, and she used to keep telling me, "Did we try this? Can we look at this?" And those things used to excite me. So that's the advantage of having worked with both of them. Yeah. Whatever little disadvantages they had is where I filled in, and then the equation worked perfectly fine. Wow, lovely. So I want to hear about some situation where it was a difficult kind of, I want to use that word difficult, where maybe it was a difficult chemistry, and then you kind of converted it, or ironed it out, or something like that. If has that ever happened in the journey of acing it? Okay. So difficulty, what I There is something which I'm still trying to crack a certain nut at this moment, which I can put across to you. So the new gen that that you call Gen Z.
Yes.
All this while I used to pronounce something else, and then I was told by my son it is Gen Z. So this particular crowd is a very interesting, generation. So they know it all. They know it all, right? And they can do it all. But there is something wrong with their, earlier we used to use this word called skill will, right? But here it is, they yet to develop skills, but they're getting there. But I have a feeling there's a major will issue. So this is something I'm yet to understand as to how to handle this generation where, the person knows it all and can do it all, but, the person will only do a certain, so on a rating scale, you can say, if a report is made, that report will be accurate till 6. And there is so that 4 is left for me, like it's my scope to complete. So that's quite interesting as to this particular generation is it's a case study I would love to learn more about.
And I remember our discussion around this, how this is like a generational thing. It's not about one resource not being competent, or it's so yes, I think this is definitely another discussion that we must have.
Definitely.
Yes. Okay, great. So, when it comes to relationships at work, which is also, what essentially you're talking about, how you develop the kind of chemistries that you did. And it is so critical for, the environment at workplace for smooth work to happen. So what would be certain things that you would want to point out for leaders who have both set of people reporting into them? And yes, there may be their own set of challenges, difficulties, but how do you really navigate? What are those 1, 2, 3, 4 things which worked out for you, which you consciously created? It wasn't a coincidence to have such powerful chemistries that you're talking about, Mrs. S or Trisha. There's something that who you were being. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, what was important? So if I put both of them, in front of me today, I would definitely spend some time to understand the persona. Okay. Right. So it was very important to understand in what, various boxes, like if I have that checklist, in which boxes, Mrs. S fell and where Trish fell. So on that basis, like I used to take out their positives. Like I had already identified what were the positives, and I was able to work on that. So I always notice it's an interlocking system. So what will be missing in certain people will be additional in others, and it used to interlock. So that combination used to always work for me, and wherever I used to see that combination is not working is where then I used to pitch in, and it really worked. So it's very, very important that we once identify their strengths, we also identify their weaknesses, and then we encash on this particular knowledge that we have. And this is something that I would put across to all leaders. It's very important to not only know them, how they perform at work, to also know about their personal life, which will also add an advantage to you when it comes to, so like in case of, Trisha and me, we used to work late nights sometimes too, but there were times when I knew that, she could not spend that type of time. So those were times when I used to change the, tact. The whole day I used to not give any work, and we used to concentrate on this particular thing because I knew evening she wouldn't be able to sit late. So those are the small things, the changes that I used to make to ensure that she's comfortable, and I used to get the work done also. So those are things which, it's important for us to, overall assess what is possible and what is not possible. Again, lower the expectations. It's when you set too high an expectation is when, you start having, you can say hiccups. So expectation setting is very important, as well as also, a perception of their strengths and their weaknesses.
Yeah.
Combinations will, get us where we want to.
So what I'm hearing, Annie, is that somewhere you were taking charge of the relationship, the chemistry, where you were not sitting and saying that, okay, this is how they are supposed to be. And if they're not being this, then there's a problem, and there's a problem with them and they need to change, etc. There's a lot of work that you were doing, as I hear this, where you said identifying their positives, their weaknesses, and not turning the weaknesses into, hey, this is not working, what's happening? Versus how can you pitch in? How can you bridge the gaps, and so there was a lot of conscious work that you were doing. Maybe that was so much a part of your being habit. So did you consciously inculcate this in you, which is, let me look at what are the positives here, let me leverage on those, and then maybe, oh, this is missing, so let's see how we can play around and maybe how we can manage this.
Okay, you touched a very good point. Most of the people today have mentors.
Yeah.
At the time when we passed out of college, we didn't have mentors. And to identify mentors also, it was very difficult, because the whole concept of, that time, training is to be called training. Today, we have different names for it, right? You have facilitators, coaches, mentors. So at that time, you didn't have, and people, you couldn't reach out to people and ask the person, can you, coach me? Because that concept was not in place. Right. So over the years, what I realized is I somehow indirectly, started learning from people. And today, of course, there's a big platform where I learn. I learn a lot on LinkedIn. And I see, so most of the connections that I have are coaches and facilitators, and there's so much of work that is happening. So what I realized is, it's when you are open to learning, then automatically things fall into place for you. So your scope increases, and this has definitely helped me over the years. So that was the best way to answer your question.
When you're open to learning, and I think you've summed it up so beautifully, which is pretty much what it is. If I'm willing to do the work on myself, then things start to turn around and they fall in place, and they are the way you create basically what you desire.
Yeah,
I just love this. Wow. And so what would be, so somebody, where, let's say people they go through these, difficult situations, and some may be easier to navigate, some may be more difficult, depending on, because the other person also comes with his or her belief system and, insecurities, all of it, which is where you said maybe Mrs. S also felt that, but then you made it comfortable, you made it easier, you gave her the space, all of that, right? Would there be any, tips, if I may call them, or any pointers that you would want to share for leaders to bridge the kind of gaps? Because I see a lot of people struggling with this kind of a thing, where they say, oh, these people, they just don't understand, this is next generation, they don't understand, they need to learn from us, this is not how it works, and somewhere there's the tolerance is not there, and like you said, the expectations are maybe way too high, and then I'm not even willing to, I don't know, but maybe at the cost of saying this word, but maybe I'm not even willing to budge, and I just want to stand in my place. So where does one get started? Or is there any pointers? Okay, these are the things that you can get started with for leaders specifically.
Sure. So I can tell you two things that works for me.
Yes.
So one for me definitely is consistency. So like I told you, for me, timelines was very important, right?
Yeah.
So I was very clear that, on this date, this report goes. And anything that you do systematically and as per a timeline is always noticed. So, and that is one reason as to, when, I grew very, you can say fast from a manager post to a regional post. in one of my positions, because I was handling one particular unit, and then maybe 3.5 years from the time I started, I moved into a regional position where I had around 4 hospitals. I was working for a hospital chain, and so then that was because there was a consistency in a certain behavior. And I still remember my boss telling me, I want the same hospital, the way you have created this HR environment to be replicated in the other 3. So there was an expectation setting that was put across. So that's why consistency is very important.
Yeah.
Secondly is closing the loop, right? So anything that someone reaches out to you, it's important that you close the loop, and the person knows, okay, so the person knows, if I give this to say so and so, this particular thing will be addressed, and that loop will be closed, and I will be updated that this is the process. So what happens is, when you are consistent and when you close the loop, automatically the a certain expectation is set in the minds of and something that will always help us to grow in life. So this is something I will definitely put across, and has worked for me. And I'm sure this would work for everybody else.
Absolutely. I think very, very powerful. Consistency and closing the loop. Lovely. So, Annie, and that brings me to when you're saying you're talking about closing the loop also, and that gives me a segue into something which is very critical, often see gaps there, which is communication. So, what kind of barriers you think, communication barriers, have you come across, if any, and you'd like to share some personal anecdotes, and how much of an impact that has, in the whole game?
Okay. Okay, this is again another topic which I like. It's something that I like, to brainstorm on, and communication. So everybody says, communication is one of the easiest things that you can do, but it's not so actually. So we have the strategy taken at the top level, then you have your middle level, and then you have the junior level who actually goes and implements it, right? So for me, it's very, very important that the focus should be on the middle level. The strategy is passed down to the middle level. If your middle level managers do not share the same focus as you have at the top level, then it's difficult for them to percolate down to the team that will be actually working on the requirement, right? So the middle layer is a layer which I would always ask all leadership teams to focus on. This is the team that will drive the organization in a certain way, and it depends on how they are coached. um, Coaching definitely for them on a one-on-one. So a skill gap should be checked for them, assessments should be done for them wherever there are gaps, because these are going to be your future leaders, right? And these are the team that is actually handling the junior level and driving. You can just take a classic example of a hotel also, right? There is a certain a new dictum which is decided at the boardroom level, and then that is passed down, and it comes to, you can say, the managers, and the managers need to tell that to the front office staff. But if that information is not passed properly to the front office team, the team is not properly coached, then that particular requirement stands where it is, and it's much later realized that this has not been passed on properly. And this is across all industries, something that we always notice. So I always focus on the middle, I call them the cream level for me. So any kind of information, first thing I check is whether this level knows it. So I usually do a dipstick to check whether they are aware of something that, some new policy that is coming. And if the answer is no, then that's where then, I start the training for them all over again, so that they can percolate further down.
And have you ever come across instances, whether it is communication or whether it is people willing to kind of settle and go with the flow after your efforts, you've put in the efforts, you've come across people who still somewhere do not flow, who are, maybe there's a lot of resistance, and that's somewhere impacting the whole workflow? And then how do you deal with that?
Okay, so this is very common. Like we do have people, but then it's important for us to, understand exactly what, because the concern could be at various levels. It could
Sure.
be a personal issue, it could be a reporting boss issue, it could be a particular work, a hygiene factor. So that's where I feel an HR's role comes into place. That as soon as you identify there is an issue like this, that's when we actually should, do a one-on-one with the employee, and try to understand as to where best we can help.
Hmm.
So, and believe me, that's one place that today, that's the reason why I'm so interested in this particular layer that I call the middle layer. um, Juniors always reach out to you. They always have some, doubts that they keep pinging you, like, can we do this, can we do that, but this level doesn't usually reach out to you, so we usually reach out to them. So
Hmm.
I always ping, like, is there something that I can help you with? This particular approval has not come through. So is there
Hmm.
something we can help you with? And that's when they slowly open out. And then you come to know that there's a whole different spectrum in front of you, and how you need to address it. So definitely, yes, one-on-one works a lot with this particular issue at hand.
Hmm. And then maybe you get clarity on whether how can you address whatever is that issue that has opened up, or maybe let go of people as well.
Usually it is like, so whenever we have these one-on-ones, what we do is we try to bring in the manager also. So it
Okay.
is usually like a triangle understanding. So the manager, the employee, and the HR.
Hmm.
And usually we iron out the creases that are there. So letting go is not something that even comes to the back of my mind. And
Sure.
yeah, so usually it usually gets resolved.
And do you see a pattern in the kind of issues or barriers that really hold people back when they're not able to really surrender and go and play 100%? Is there a pattern in the kind of challenges that hold people back?
Right. Something that I realized very recently is self-awareness. Seems to be a big issue, because many of them are not aware that they are actually having, you can say, blank spots in certain areas. You
Mhm.
remember the Johari window, right? So in
Yes.
Johari window, you it clearly identifies you as to where you stand in terms of your persona. So many of our people are not exactly aware, and if they are actually taken through. I'm a big advocate of assessments. I
Mhm.
sort of feel that we should do routine assessments to understand where we stand, and there's enough and more in the market today to
Yeah.
tell us as to where, which, and assessment by default over time also changes to, like, what I was 10 years ago I need not be today.
Yes.
Right. So once in a while doing an assessment is good, and I encourage it. So it's important for us to, sort of give them an idea as to where they stand. It helps a lot in our one-on-ones.
Hmm. Wow. Interesting. So, what I'm hearing, just to summarize, this was a lot of nuggets there, and I love the way you've navigated these situations, and I love it how not even once did I hear from you, that um, you said it doesn't even occur to me to let them go. How can I iron out? How can I make this work? How can I see that I'm making them comfortable? How can I bridge the gaps? It's all about me. What more can I do? What can I bring to the table so that we can bridge that gap and we can have a nice chemistry and we make it work and we complement each other, which is so powerful because it flows from top to bottom. And if that's the leadership, then of course it just passes on. So that's beautiful. So what you're essentially saying, and please fill in wherever you think I'm missing out on something critical. You said that there are advantages of having these different generations coming in, and you spoke about reverse mentoring, and for sure, the older ones bring something which to the table, and then the younger one brings something else, and we're all kind of complementing each other, which is beautiful. You spoke about understanding people, and understanding them, understanding how they, what drives them, what maybe their beliefs are, thoughts are, how they operate, their persona, personality, what you're talking about. And one thing that you spoke about is lowering the expectations. So I think that distinction between no missing, no mess when it comes to work, and yet it's let's have fun, let's enjoy, let's celebrate. I think that's beautiful. That's very, very powerful, where um which is at times a concern, that it's all fun and then you miss out on this. But I think beautifully you've kind of said that. So that's a very powerful one. And I think a large part of it, what I hear is the awareness that you have about yourself, the self-awareness, which is where you are approaching them from that awareness, and you say, okay, what more can I bring in? I'm sure you've had your series of thoughts there, but I'm sure you've checked that, and then you've kind of navigated through it and said that, okay, let me not let this drain them or pass it on there, and we keep the space nice and happy and all of that. So that requires that requires intentionality. I think that requires a lot of consciousness, a lot of awareness, which comes with practice. Like you said, you've evolved through it. So I think that's a beautiful message that, I'd like to take from what you said, is that how aware I am, how much can I do the work on myself? Because ultimately it flows from me to the other. It takes just a second to kind of mess up the whole thing and then get into that blame game and then all the mess that people go through, versus I think little things that you spoke about, they're not as little when it comes to implementation, I'm sure. But what amazing stuff that you've created, these two examples that you gave about Trisha and Mrs. S. So I just love that. And identifying the positives and the weaknesses also, but playing on those positives and filling in for that. Absolutely loved it. I just love that bit, that is
Summarized it so beautifully, Aastha. I wouldn't be able to do that. Believe me. And I was like, oh my God, you practically brought in everything that I put across and done beautifully. Thank you so much. I'm feeling so good hearing that.
No, but this is so powerful. And I think the last discussion that we had, which was of course it was about everything and all. And I thought, okay, it's going to be interesting. Let's see. And I knew, with the vibe and what you were sharing, that they're going to be nuggets. And what has come out today is really powerful, really beautiful, and something that you've really done. And it's an evidence. It's like a permission slip that, yes, this works. I've done it. I've created it. It may take effort for sure. It's no rocket science, but then, yes, I need to be willing to do that work. So I think
I can say if it works for me, I'm sure it'll work for you too.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, and then the consistency that you spoke about and closing the loop, the two things that you said work for me, which is, that consistency. I think in the way you show up and people know that this is who Annie is, this is what Annie stands for also. And then when it comes to communication, you spoke about closing the loop, because I see one of the big misses, which I think is invariably 99% of the times I see, is a huge gap in communication, whether it is work related and even otherwise, Annie, where maybe I'm feeling a certain way, but I can't gather the courage to walk up to my manager or my coworker and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and maybe this is the impact the conversation had on me. And there's so much inhibition around that for various reasons. Of course, it takes two to kind of bridge that. But I think, closing the loop is so important. Yeah.
Yep.
So lovely. I think, is there anything that I'm missing out? Anything that comes to your mind? Last words that you want to pass on to the people, the leaders who are listening, the employees who are listening, and I think they're benefiting from this.
I can only put across, Aastha, the generation, that we have today has a lot to offer. And this is the best time for us to, pick up whatever we can from this particular generation, because I find them very, innovative. And this is definitely another topic for you and me to discuss for sure. Yeah. And today, the big in thing is reverse mentoring. And I do notice that, if we actually go out there, there's a whole lot of stuff that we can learn today at the, the age and time we are in. So definitely, this is something I would like to put across, that be open to the change that's happening. And, let's just learn, let's all of us learn everything together.
Wow. Wow. That happiness that, it just flows. It's just oozing out from you. And that's so authentic and so profound. And no wonder, it's because of the vibe that you carry and what you're creating out there. That's why it's just so profound. So love it. And I think what comes to my mind, just came to my mind, is that you're actually experiencing the beauty in people. That's what you look out for, what's beautiful there, what's beautiful there, what's beautiful there. That's the sense that I'm getting. And that's so difficult so many times. Kudos
Because
that
they're
you.
beautiful. I mean, they're genuinely beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm picking up all that beauty from them.
Wow. Wow. Love that. Superb, superb. So thank you so much, Annie, for this. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Every interaction with you is just so full of energy, and I just love this. And I'm sure people who are watching this or who'd be watching this are going to love this. They are going to pick up stuff for themselves. So those of you who are watching, make sure you may want to watch this, pause it, think, reflect, note down, see what resonates with you. Don't not necessary to pick up everything, but see what hits you the most and pick that up. And if there's anything that comes to your mind from your experiences, from the perspectives that you hold, there are queries, please feel free to put them down in the comment. And we'll be happy to reach out to Annie and get her to answer. And you can have Annie's perspective on those. And we're going to also tag Annie as we put out the teaser on the LinkedIn. So please go ahead, follow Annie, check out her profile. And you've already witnessed her vibe, so you definitely want to follow her work and her communication expression on LinkedIn. So do that. And I look forward to connecting again, Annie, to have
Same.
many, many more discussions. Lovely. Thank you so much once again.
Same here, Aastha. Thank you so much.